So, welcome once again to another episode where we are going to talk about void and voidable marriages. So, void and voidable marriages is provided for under Section 11 and 12 respectively. So, Section 11 provides for void marriages and Section 12 provides for voidable marriages. And a void marriage is a marriage that is null, it's a marriage that is not legal, it's a marriage that is not recognizable by law. And avoidable marriage is a marriage that is valid until one of the parties goes and contests for that validity in court, or goes and cancels for the cause for the cancellation of that marriage. So Section 11 provides for circumstances of void marriages, and these are when the parties are not of the minimum required age of 18, that marriage will stand as a void marriage. When the marriage is prohibited by law, maybe in circumstances of same-sex marriages, that marriage will stand as a void marriage. When those parties are incompetent or incompetent, or incompetency of one party, or maybe if this party is has there's another subsisting marriage, then that marriage is stand as a void marriage. When the consent of parties was not freely given, or either of the parties was not freely given, maybe it was under duress or undue influence, that marriage is stand as a void marriage. When the marriage was conducted by unauthorized persons, it will be a void marriage. When marriage is conducted for the purposes of fraud and for fraudulent purposes, it will just stand as a void marriage. And when one of the party is absent during the conduction of that marriage ceremony, it will be a void marriage. Failure to identify the party by one party, identity mistake, it's also part of a void marriage, and other reasons. So voidable marriage, we've got a registered marriage, we stand as a voidable marriage. Marriage that were conducted by someone who is not authorized by law is a voidable marriage. A marriage that is conducted when a notice is given and has not been withdrawn, that's voidable marriage. So we're going to look at Section 11 and Section 12 of the Marriage Act. So Section 11 provides for void marriages, and a union is not a valid marriage. A union is not a marriage if at the time of the making of the union, either party is below the minimum age of marriage, the parties are within the prohibited marriage relationship, marriage that is prohibited, maybe same-sex marriage. Either party is incompetent to marry by reason of a subsisting marriage, by order made under Section 825 by the court, has declared that the intended marriage is not to be conducted. It's also another ground for void marriage is an order by court. When a court gives an order that marriage should not be conducted, then that marriage will be a void marriage. And consent of either party has not been given freely, it was under duress, undue influence, or coercion, and either party is absent from the ceremony, for the marriage ceremony, because this is a marriage that's supposed to be attended by two parties. Like if one absents himself, then who herself, who will conduct the marriage? Like let's take, like when a woman or a man, like this marriage will be that now between, to just be a one party marriage, then that cannot work. So when one person absentees himself from the marriage, then that will just be a void marriage automatically. So both parties knowingly and unknowingly permits a person who is not authorized to do so to celebrate the union. So the person must also be authorized, must obtain that authorization maybe from the registry, and must have that certificate. So both parties, and either party is mistaken about the identity of the other party. Like how can you mistake the identity of someone you're intending to marry? I don't know if that works, but it just be a void marriage if you fail to identify the correct identity. Maybe the person who are presenting to marry, the details are not the same as the one in the certificate, like it's a different person. just it's also on the ground of void marriage, and either party knowingly or unknowingly enters into a marriage for fraudulent purposes. So under section 11 subsection 2, that one is 11 subsection 1. So 11 subsection 2, the consent not freely given where parties was influenced by coercion, fraud, mistaken, or as to the notice and purport of the purported and suffering from mental conditions, whether permanent or temporarily, or is under intoxication, and not appropriate for the purpose of the ceremony. So under section 11 subsection 2 talks about the consent. When consent was not given, when the consent was influenced by fraud, when the consent was influenced by intoxication, when there was insanity, either temporal or permanent insanity, that marriage is turned to be void marriage. Even intoxication, when another party is intoxicated, not able to understand the nature or to appreciate the nature of that marriage ceremony. Someone was intoxicated not to understand the purpose of that marriage ceremony, then that marriage will stand as a void marriage. So section 12 provides for voidable marriages, and this is whereby there is insanity. Also, the marriages can be voidable standards can stand as a voidable marriage, and either party was and has ever since remained incapable of consummating the marriage, and either party was and has since ever remained subject to attacks of insanity. So if the person after that marriage is being attacked by insanity, then another party can go, like, you cannot live with someone who is not well mentally. That person can even kill you. So you can go and invalidate that marriage. So under void marriage, we've got that ground of insanity, and under voidable marriage, if this person, the insanity still continues, then that marriage can be terminated or can be cancelled during that process. And another ground of voidable marriage is when or whereby a notice that an objection notice was not withdrawn. So when a notice to object that marriage had been given and had not been withdrawn, one party can go and cancel that marriage ceremony, that marriage, or invalidate the marriage. Another ground is the ground of unregistered marriage. So when a marriage was not registered, it can be avoidable. One party can go and cancel that marriage, and marriage that was conducted by an unauthorized person or someone who had not been authorized by law or given that legal certificate or legal to conduct the marriage ceremony. One party can just decide and go and cancel the marriage ceremony or invalidate the marriage ceremony. So that is about void and voidable marriage. Is provided for under section 11 and 12 of the Marriage Act. So that's the end. Have a nice day. Subscribe to Scott's Legal Channel. Stay safe, and come on guys, we're gonna do this.